Pepper spray hissed through the courthouse hallway, filling the air with a choking chemical burn. Panicked onlookers stumbled back, some shielding their eyes, others pulling out phones to record the chaos. In the midst of this stinging cloud stood Neha Sharma, visibly furious, canister in hand, until the moment she realized the person she had just assaulted was the very judge presiding over her pending case. Her arrogant glare morphed into stunned disbelief as security rushed in, handcuffs at the ready. No one in that hallway could have predicted how one morning's petty confrontation would spiral into such a life-altering nightmare. Earlier that morning, Meera Kapoor began her day the same way she had almost every morning for the past decade, by doing a small act of kindness that no one else seemed to notice. This time, it was outside the bustling downtown courthouse just past dawn. The line at the nearby cafe snaked around the block, filled with bleary-eyed lawyers juggling leather briefcases, paralegals frantically tapping notes into smartphones, and a few courthouse regulars trying not to spill their coffees on the gleaming sidewalk. At the very front stood an elderly woman, fumbling in her purse for spare change, her brow creased with worry as she realized she was short of the price for a small latte. Meera, noticing the woman's distress, quietly stepped forward. Andy covered the extra cost. "Please, let me," she offered in a gentle tone, earning a grateful smile from the older woman. But just as Meera turned to place her own order, a sharp, irritated voice cut through the air. "Excuse me, do you think you can just cut in line like that?" The speaker was Neha, a woman in a pressed blouse, stylish jacket, and an air of self-importance that hovered around her like cheap cologne. She tapped her foot impatiently, lips pursed in a disapproving scowl. One hand clutched her phone. The other was perched on her hip as though ready for battle. Meera calmly explained she wasn't cutting. She had only stopped to help pay for the elderly woman's coffee. But Neha's glare hardened, her voice growing more pointed with each syllable. "I don't care what your excuse is," she spat. "I've been waiting here, and no one gets special treatment, especially not someone who doesn't even understand how to follow basic rules." A hush fell over the crowd. Though no one openly intervened, some perhaps didn't want to get involved. Others were too busy gawking at Neha's scathing outburst, their phones discreetly recording. Meera felt a hot knot of indignation tightening in her chest. She took a measured breath, trying to remain composed. She had encountered this exact brand of contempt before, a tone that carried far more than just impatience at the cafe line. Despite the rising tension, Meera chose to de-escalate. She gave a small nod, took her latte, and stepped aside. But the moment left her unsettled, really unsettled. She could still feel Neha's eyes boring into her back, as though she were an intruder who had dared to violate an unwritten social code. Meera forced her shoulders to relax and moved on, trying to brush off the confrontation. After all, she had important work awaiting her inside that courthouse. Little did she know just how quickly she would face Neha again, and under far more explosive circumstances. The incident. The mid-morning hum in the courthouse lobby was a study in organized chaos. Lawyers hustled across polished marble floors, their arms crammed with heavy files. Plaintiffs and defendants alike hovered near the security checkpoint, shuffling through metal detectors and scanning the overhead displays to find their assigned courtrooms. A faint smell of printer ink and furniture polish lingered in the air. Meera sat on a bench by the wide windows, reviewing a thick folder of legal documents. She still felt a trace of residual stress from the cafe incident. "Let it go," she told herself. "You have more pressing matters to handle." Outside, beams of sunshine reflected off the glass doors, signaling a deceptively calm day. Suddenly, commotion flared by the security screening. Raised voices echoed, bouncing off the high ceilings. Meera's gaze snapped up and her stomach clenched when she recognized a familiar figure. Neha, the same posture, the same unmistakable indignation. This time, Neha was arguing with two security officers, her tone shrill enough to turn heads. "I'm telling you, I don't have anything illegal." Neha's voice rang out. She clutched her handbag as though it were a lifeline. Then Meera saw it, a small black canister in Neha's grip. Before the guards could react, Neha's frustration culminated in a swift, reckless squeeze of the pepper spray nozzle. A fierce, burning mist hissed out, filling the air with chemical fumes. People shrieked in alarm. The metal detector beeped wildly as the guards rushed forward, arms raised to shield their eyes. Mira, who was just steps away, felt her eyes start to sting and tear up almost instantly. A scorching pain seared her face and throat. She staggered back, her vision blurred by hot tears. Neha's tirade continued, even as the crowd recoiled. "Maybe this will teach you all a lesson about messing with me," she screamed, sounding almost delirious. Cameras flashed. Some bystanders had whipped out their phones, capturing every moment. Others rushed to help those coughing and blinded by the spray. Through the haze and burning sensation, Mira felt a swell of outrage. It wasn't just about the physical pain. It was about the toxic hatred fueling Neha's actions. Security officers finally subdued Neha, prying the pepper spray from her trembling fingers. An officer barked out her rights, declaring she was under arrest for assault. Neha raged, "I know people in high places. You're going to regret this." But each boast rang hollow, a desperate attempt to maintain control she no longer had. The courtroom reckoning. Within the high-ceilinged courtroom, the atmosphere was palpably tense. Neha now stood at the defendant's table, her perfectly applied makeup smudged. She gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. Then, a bailiff cleared his throat and announced, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Kapoor." The heavy side door swung open. A figure stepped onto the raised platform, black robes flowing. Mira Kapoor. Soft gasps spread through the crowd. Even those still recovering from the pepper spray incident saw the look of absolute shock on Neha's face. Mira's eyes, still slightly irritated, shone with cool focus. Neha's bravado had vanished. Gone was the sneering, self-assured stance from earlier. In its place stood a woman grappling with the stark reality that the person she had just assaulted was the judge now presiding over her case. The trial proceedings began. Mira's voice filled the courtroom, clear and controlled. "We are here to address the state versus Neha Sharma, charged with assault, disorderly conduct, and contempt of court. Each charge fell like a hammer blow." Neha attempted to speak. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." But the court was not a place for convenient apologies. In the aftermath, Neha faced steep bail, mandatory court appearances, and the very real possibility of jail time. Justice had been served. And no one in that courthouse would ever forget the moment a woman assaulted a stranger she presumed insignificant, only to learn that this stranger was the very judge with the power to decide her fate. Thanks for watching.